I always found his gritty approach to humor was very, very funny. And for a number of years, it seemed like Chris Rock became Chris Cotton. He wasn't the gritty, edgy comedian that he once was. He became a more toned down comic. He became a comic that was playing by the rules, so to speak. And this was underscored by his numerous award show presentations. On his award show presentations, he wasn't very funny, but I believe he has been used on these award shows to stir up beefs and conflicts. And prior to Will Smith giving him the victory slap, Chris Rock had already been using Will and Jada as part of his stand-up routine. Over time, this culminated into Will Smith slapping him for making some inappropriate remarks about his wife. Okay. Now, since the slap, Will Smith has been vilified in the press. He saw one of his most important films go into the theaters to some very mixed reviews, very little fanfare, very little publicity. And I believe that the film Emancipation is Will Smith's most important work. I really believe this is an adaptation of a true story of a African American who was enslaved in America. And if you can think of this one iconic film in the context of the history in America, you can see that it was a very relevant film to make. It was not like Django, which was like heavily fiction based. This is a true story of a person who endured captivity in America. But most recently, Chris Rock decided that he was going to break his silence and he was going to address Will Smith once and for all. And he decided that he would do a whole Netflix special about the slap. Never in the history of slaps has a person been so motivated and so encouraged that they would now go out there and even make more creative works. Never before in the history of slaps has a slap made a person great again. Alright, but here we have Will Smith's slap making Chris Rock a whole new comedian. Alright, Chris Rock revived his old style of comedy. I mean, he was like a prize fighter. He left no stone unturned and he left no door unopened. He called Will Smith's wife the B word several times. He called Will Smith the B word several times. And it seemed to me that Chris Rock was basing his whole stand-up routine on tweets. Everything he was saying, I had already seen somebody say on Twitter. Alright, and so if that was enough to get a Netflix special, I think there are several people on Twitter that Chris Rock owes some remuneration. Chris Rock owes them some gratuity for making use of their material. Alright, it was not original. I believe a child could have written some aspects of his stand-up routine because, everybody would talk about the entanglement with August Alsina. This is something that they themselves publicized. They actually did a red table talk and discussed it openly. Alright, apparently they had been living in an open relationship for many years, and this was made public on many occasions. And so for Chris Rock to dig in the gutter to assassinate their character shows that at the end of the day, he was defeated. The slap robbed him of his dignity, his pride, his forward momentum in life. It caused him to get closer to family. Maybe he took his time to get his affairs in order, prepared a will. He did the things that most people wouldn't have time to do because the slap sort of woke him up from that deep Negro sleep that he was under. Alright, but regarding the stand-up show, like I said, he revived his old comedy style, which I was a fan of, where he was just super edgy, just dropping a lot of expletives, telling the raw truth rather than sugarcoating it. This is what we knew Chris Rock for, and so I would like to say that although I enjoyed the presentation, I believe that Chris Rock went too far by continuing the disrespect that got him slapped. If he truly wants to turn over a new leaf, if he truly wants to be the bigger person, I don't believe he should use the deception that he has used over the past few months. Alright? The reason why everybody sympathized with Chris Rock is because he has been taking the high road since the slap. Alright? After his face and the contortions would have subsided, and he had time to reflect on it, one would think that Chris Rock would actually take a different approach. But he basically doubled down on the rhetoric of the Oscars show, and he went as far as to make a public spectacle of a private family matter. But ultimately, what I would say, Chris Rock and Will Smith are two African Americans, and I don't believe it is beneficial for us to see them squabbling in the press, squabbling on stage, But, Chris Rock made a comment and said that his parents told him to not fight in front of white people, right? Yet still, he would assassinate the character of another black man in front of a crowd of white people. And he's done this repeatedly. He hasn't just done this in his most recent stand-up special. Every time Chris Rock gets a job to host an award show, he has a Will Smith and Jada Smith joke. And I think, they both have legitimate grievances, and so I wouldn't want to put all of the blame on Chris Rock. But at the end of the day, he needs to keep it real and reflect on why he was slapped. Alright, because clearly he didn't understand the reason for the slap, because he came and he did the same thing again, but for a much larger audience. Okay? But family, let me know your thoughts in the comments below about all these dynamics. What were your thoughts about Chris Rock's stand-up special? What were your thoughts about the Emancipation film? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below about all these dynamics. One love.